Christmas is about socks. Wait, John, we know you're not a historian, but we're all pretty sure it's about baby Jesus being born. You know, like, hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn king. Yes, the biblical Christmas. I'm talking about commercial Christmas. They are not the same. So let's break this down. He has many names: St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, Santa Claus. I'm wearing my red regalia for this one. And in the original tale, a man would deliver gifts small enough to fit into your socks or your stockings that were drying by the hearth. This would evolve into Christmas stockings. Hello, fellow nerds. This is John, a nerd that knits, and we're talking socks. What do socks have to do with Christmas, and how knitted socks originated around the world? The first recorded sock was in ancient Egypt. They were found in an Egyptian tomb, and that tomb dated back in the 500 AD. The technique to make socks was not knitting, but a technique called nail binding. I am not sure if that is how it's pronounced. Now, if you're like me, you might be asking questions like, isn't that climate more tropical? Don't they wear sandals? Why would they need socks? And yes, you would be correct, but I don't need to explain that blisters are a real thing and that every climate has winter. So socks were a real thing, and yes, they did wear them with sandals. And we're also going to assume that this is the upper echelon, the upper elite. So take that, Birkenstock sock haters. Meanwhile, Egypt wouldn't be the first culture with the splitting toe to make way for a sandal. About 8,000 miles away, definitely not the same time frame, by boat, is another country that used these toe socks. And here, they were called tabi, in a country that today we call Japan. Tabi started as a split toe leather shoe for the elite class in the Heian period, 710-1192. They were slowly evolved into a sock that were worn with sandals. Sandals such as zori or geta. Tabi were also made from a multitude of materials such as silk, hemp, cotton, and leather. But they were also knitted. It is not known when knitted tabi were introduced, but they are still a staple in Japanese fashion. But let's be clear, knitted tabi are not traditional. Other materials were. So the saga continues. So where to next? Well, that's a part of the great debate, because wool is a natural fiber and it doesn't stick around for centuries. But historians have signs to why they believe it believed in the Middle East and North Africa. A collection of knitting was found in a tomb that was sealed in 1275. This tomb was found in Spain, but Spain was once held by Arabic people, if you know who the Moors were. The Moors controlled Spain and Portugal from 711 to 1492, you know, when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Oh, we could go into that, but we're not going to. I am obsessed with Moors, but that's another video. Anywho, from these knitted fragments, they saw the name Allah printed on them. After this discovery, additional pieces have also been found, which led them to believe that Arabic artisans were the creators of knitting. And the last piece of historical lore is that knitting reads from right to left. Anyone that's knitted a graph, you know what I'm talking about. This mimics how languages such as Arabic were written, unlike European languages. We be writing differently, guys. And then the trade lines of the Middle East. So where else did these socks migrate to? Let's go to the coldest places on Earth. The coldest places on Earth. Show me your socks. So let's talk Russia. Now, Russia of the past is not the Russia of today. For one, it's much smaller. But the first recorded knitting socks, or stockings, in Russia was about 988 AD. This was dated due to some archaeological finds of a North Russia burial site. Russia has a lot of knitting techniques, lots of colors, traditions, and yes, they are also a great sock knitting culture. One thing I found fascinating about Russia is that their soldiers never wore socks, seriously, until 2013. They wore foot wraps called poryanki? I'm not sure. So sorry if I slaughtered that for you guys. They wrapped their feet using these simple square cloths, and that was used until 2013. Blew my mind. For a country known for its very cold and harsh winters, I was very surprised to hear this. Now, moving on to Antarctica. Antarctica, Jean, population question. Yes, I realize that Antarctica does not have a population, but do you know what they do have? A population of scientists that knit. One of the more famous knitters of Antarctica would be Jackie Ron. Hope I'm saying her name right, I'm sorry. A part of the Ron Antarctic Research Expedition in 1947 and 1948, she was the first American woman to go to Antarctica, but also one of the first women to winter over in our Antarctica. From memory, she made mittens, headbands, scarves, sweaters, and socks. Some of these knitted items are on display in the National Museum of the United States in Washington, D.C. So let's talk about luxury, because we've already shown you that socks were a luxury item for the elite for a very long period of time. So let's break it down. Now, a lot of socks were luxury items for the clergy and for the wealthy, and that does not exclude the nobility of Europe during the Middle Ages. But their socks were made of fine wool and silk, mainly called stockings. They were knee or thigh high length. They would also kind of use a tie because, they didn't have garters or they didn't have suspenders, other ways to keep them up, or elastic. They were worn by the nobility until the knitting machine was made in 1589. Then the lower classes were able to enjoy. These stockings would adapt to what they are now. William Lee, 1589. Who is this guy? Well, this guy is the guy who made the knitting machine. I talked about him before when I talked about lace. If you don't remember the video, go back and watch the video on Did Queen Victoria Save Lace? So let's take a side quest on Mr. Lee. It is supposed that William Lee grew up in Sussex and was a curate, which is an older term for a parish priest. Think Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Collins. If you know, you know. The story goes that Mr. Lee created a knitting machine, but it was refused a patent by Queen Elizabeth because of her concern for knitting that women and children would do for their livelihoods. We talked about this, but this story is unfounded and we don't know if it's the actual factual truth. Another side of this story is that the hosier guilds also feared this invention that would make the artisan skills obsolete. This is another story without evidence, so please take these two stories as you will. Whatever the case, this bit of information is really juicy. He went into a partnership with George Brooke in the 1600s, 1600. Unfortunately, Mr. Brooke was arrested and charged with treason and executed in 1603. Mr. Lee took off to France with his brother and received a patent for his knitting machine by the Huguenot Henry, I want to say the 5th, but also say Henry the 6th, just in case, of France. And this started his stocking manufacturing in Rouen, France. I probably said that one wrong too, so sorry. Now, I know that sock history is vast and long, and I had an entire video talking about Finnish sock knitting. Once again, you can go back to that. Beautiful, beautiful history and lore. But we need to know about how it relates to Christmas. So a big sorry to all the other countries that I've missed or we've paused on. Your stories will have to wait because we have to know, how did a man named Nicholas get introduced into all of this? Who is this Nicholas guy? I mean, who is Saint Nick? Who is this guy? Saint Nicholas was a monk believed to be born in 280 AD. Whew, this is a long time ago. Paramyra, I think I'm saying that wrong too, which is our modern day Turkey. So he's a monk in what we know as Turkey now. He was known for his generosity, especially towards the poor. It is believed that he gave away all of his inherited wealth to help the poor and the sick. One of his most famous stories is that he gave a generous gift of gold and saved these 3 poor girls, or 3 poor women, from being sold into slavery or prostitution. Please remember that during this time in history, women needed a dowry in order to get married, and poor women didn't have many options. So we're going to set that aside of however we feel about that and move on to the historical aspect of it. Saint Nicholas became the patron saint of children and sailors, and on the anniversary of his death, which is December 6th, it was considered an advantageous day to buy really expensive gifts or to get married. By the Renaissance, he was the most popular saint in Europe. This guy was the guy. So after years of religious transitions, please refer to the Protestant Reformation. We're not going to get into that. He was very popular. And one of the places he was extremely popular in and held good favor was Holland. We're just going to pause for dramatic effect because Holland, yes. But Jean, why Holland? Well, Holland's very important to us here in America. So, why, my friend? Because I am from the US and we can't have Christmas without the Dutch community because they are the reason why we have good old Santa Claus. Dutch families migrated to America and would celebrate his death in New York in 1773 and 1774. But the name Santa Claus evolved from the Dutch name Sinterklaas, and this was shortened from the name Sint Nicholas. I'm sure I'm slaughtering all these, I'm so sorry. And in 1809, Washington Irving, probably saying that wrong too, I'm so sorry. You know, you gotta love a good Washington though, helped popularize Sinterklaas' story. He referred to him as the patron saint of New York. The idea of gift giving was mainly focused on the gift giving to children, and this idea took off in the 19th century. Into 1820s, Christmas shopping really took off, and they started using images of the newly popular Santa Claus as its poster patron saint, and quite literally as a poster child everywhere. As you can see, the rest is history. But was this Santa Claus ever real? Well, we don't really have evidence to test that, but who cares? His gift giving to the poor has inspired millions to do the same, and isn't that saintly indeed? Stories evolve over time, and now here we are putting stockings on the hearth. Now, in places where people don't have fireplaces, they put them under the tree, which makes a lot of sense to me. As I understand that Christmas didn't really... The Protestants that came to America when they migrated, they didn't bring Christmas. They were like, no, Christmas, no, we don't want that stuff. We don't want that, you know, because originally Christmas was like more Saturnalia kind of vibes, if you know about Saturnalia and about the winter solstice. And so that was more like pagan kind of ideas, and the Protestants want to get away from all those ideas, you know, as much as possible. But when people started immigrating to the US, they started bringing all their Christmas traditions together. And that is why we love Holland. Praise Holland. Because Holland brought in all of those St. Nicholas, they brought in a bunch of stuff. And quite literally, it got so popular that, you know, we just got to deal with everyone's traditions because, you know, we are a melting pot of culture over here. And you know what? For me, I am like, bring it, want more for sure. So what Christmas traditions involve knitting? Well, the Christmas stocking that is hung by the fireplace with care, the stockings themselves, they are traditionally knitted. That's right, knitters rejoice. Everyone wants a knitted stocking. Now, I do have a confession. It's confession time. I only have one knitted stocking, and I made it for my daughter. And this is mainly because there are so many amazing Christmas stocking patterns out there that I have gotten decision paralysis over the year. Which one should I make? Which style? Which colors? Should I go classic? Should I go modern? Like, it is mind-boggling. So this has kept me away from knitting a lot of stockings for my family. But I have definitely made Christmas stockings for other people. I made them for my sister and for her daughter, and for other family members. So, you know, I will get on the program, I promise. Now we're gonna jump into the project. Now, this is where I show you the stocking that I made, right? Because we're talking about Christmas stockings, and that's where you would be wrong, because I made socks. Because there are a lot of countries that make socks for their beloved ones as gifts for Christmas, because who doesn't love a pair of socks? So this year we are taking a note from Finland. Have yourself a Merry Finnish Christmas. I made my Christmas socks using the True Crew sock set. Oh, that is a mouthful. Now, this is a new heel construction for me. This pattern came out in September 2025. To me, this heel has some comparisons to the Sweet Tomato heel by Kat Bordy in a way, but in a way not. So this is a top-down sock pattern. You're increasing the stitches, and then you're turning the heel, and then you're decreasing the stitches. You're not picking up stitches nor making heel flaps. But am I sold on this heel? Yes, because I think it feels great on the feet. But I will not be testing them out with shoes. This is for someone else. I mean, they are a Christmas gift after all. So the knitted socks that I made, I have them here. I used a steam blocker. And so they're very simple. They're very like Christmas. They're very great. This is kind of what the heel looks like. I hope you can kind of see it. It kind of comes to like a little bit of a point. What I like about it is that this ridge is kind of like right on like the heel, but it doesn't feel very awkward. And then it's all very nice and flat. I know that the designer also has a pattern with striped socks. So the pattern does come like just like a plain Jane, kind of like vanilla sock-esque. And then she does have striped. So you can see how she does the striping on her socks as well. So if you're interested in the pattern, I think it's $6. I do like the construction. I think the construction is very nice. I will say that it's lucky for me that the person I'm gifting these to has kind of the same foot size as me. But I would definitely, if you're giving a gift or if you're making socks as a gift, really kind of follow her construction and how she does it, because it does hit a little different. She has you measure the ball of your foot. I don't know if you've ever gotten that measurement from people. I don't know if you're like, hey, so-and-so, need that ball of your foot measurement. I was shocked that I was a size large, but hey, you know what? These socks fit amazingly. I really do hope that she sizes up in the future, because I think that it only goes to XL. So we'll see if that is something that she does. So I hope that you enjoyed the briefest of brief, and I do mean brief, kind of like skimming the surface of the history of socks, but also kind of like the history of Christmas and how are socks involved and what is up with all of this. And I also am going to throw in kind of a little side tidbit. We don't actually know how St. Nicholas delivered these gold coins. It is speculated it was by a window. But how it went from a window to a chimney to a stocking, in some cultures it's a shoe, some places they put stocking under the tree, I don't know how it got there. And here's the thing, it doesn't matter, because we enjoy this particular holiday. And we are doing it out of the love for our family and our friends. So Merry Christmas, Merry whatever else you celebrate. And, you know, Happy New Year, and I hope you get everything that you wish for. Happy knitting, happy crocheting. I really hope you get tons of yarn for Christmas, because I know that's what you want. And as always, thanks. Please like, comment, and subscribe.